welcome to round two of Agave Road Trip-in-a-Box. This round, you like that, don't you, Chava?
I
This
love
round
that.
is worlds apart. So, the first round, right, we were talking about two spirits made using the same agave, very, very similar processes, only 100 miles apart, and yet there's so much difference to the flavors. This round is kind of the same in that it's the same, it's not an agave, but it's the same sugar source, which in this case is dasylirion. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it was close. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
okay with that.
Okay,
I
great.
see Lydian.
Dasylirion. So when we say agave, right, and then we say tobala, like agave, or we say potatorum, agave potatorum. So that's the potatorum kind of agave, and the familiar name is tobala. In this case, we're talking about dasylirion, right? So think agave, but not agave.
It,
Different
it,
plant,
it
both
it's like
succulents.
it's like saying dogs and wolves, I think.
Oh, I like that. Okay,
Right?
yeah,
So
sure, yeah.
agave is dogs, Dicylirion is wolves.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. And then there are different kinds of wolves, right?
Hmm.
So we got these two spirits in two very different places. These are 800 miles apart. The first one is actually a neighbor, relatively a neighbor of Sebastian's from that first round, named Catalina Lopez Velasco in Yutanduchi de Guerrero, Oaxaca.
Wow, yes, you got it.
I'm
Finally, you
getting
nailed
better
it.
with that
Yeah,
Guerrero.
yeah, awesome.
Thank you. So Catalina made hers in Oaxaca, and then 800 miles away, Gilberto Roldan in
Mhm.
Nombre de Dios, Durango, made
Yes.
a spirit using, again, a different kind of dasylirion. So,
Mhm.
so Chava, talk to me. What are the differences? What are the similarities?
Oh, this is gonna be so hard because these guys work in very distinct ways, and I think this is one of my favorite sets of the tasting.
Mm,
And I think I'll first talk about Gilberto
mhm.
because he is really far away from what most people know about mezcal. Durango is not the most visited area nor the most mentioned when we talk about mezcales or agave spirits. Yet they have one of the most robust traditions in Mexico. And in the case of Gilberto, he's one of the rock stars in the area. Nombre de Dios, it's almost like saying Matatlan is the world capital of mezcal or agave spirits in Durango. So most of the production that you're going to find coming from Durango is most likely made or produced in Nombre de Dios. The area, it's very desertic. The
It's
the
very like it's desert-like.
it's desert like, no?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
You'll
I just
agree.
wanted to make
No,
sure I
no,
understood what you were saying.
no, yeah, yeah. Sorry, it's my
Okay.
morning accent. It's a little bit more challenging than my afternoon accent. And I just like when you get there on a bus, suddenly you start seeing no trees, nothing, just a lot of cows. There's a lot of cows in the
A
environment,
lot of cows.
and a lot of
A
agave,
lot of bull
and
sperm.
a lot of. Lou has a lot of stories about that. But there's a few things that are very incredible about Durango that are not there in Oaxaca. First of all, I think I will be confident saying that most of the sotol used for this production was wild sotol. It was not cultivated
Yeah, though I would say that's also the same in
in
Yutanduchi.
Yutanduchi. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
which is very specific to sotol. Sotol, I don't think we have a lot of examples of cultivated sotol yet. I think that might start
I couldn't
happening.
tell you. I think up north they must be doing it. They're making so much sotol up there, but I don't know for a fact. I don't know. Maybe, maybe
The
not.
thing is, the land there, Durango, it's a massive state,
Think
and you,
Wyoming.
like,
Think North Dakota.
I have no idea. But think about that if you guys know what that means. Uh, and the thing is, they had a lot of this, and they have historically never used a lot of it. Maybe they have used it for regional parties and making a little bit of the drink for their towns, but never in industrial scale. So there's still a lot of wild sotol out there. That might change in the few
and
next
and
years.
agave.
And agave. That's
And
correct.
agave. Yep.
So, long story short, Gilberto goes harvest this by hand because there's no other way to do this. If you ever see a brand saying we harvest our agaves by hand and they try to make a big deal out of it, can you imagine another way of harvesting a sotol or an agave that is not by hand?
I can't. No.
Exactly. It's like handmade milkshakes, whatever. Uh, I saw that in London. In this establishment, we do handmade milkshakes. I laughed a lot. But
Yeah. I guess McDonald's doesn't.
yeah, well, yeah, sure.
No. Yeah.
Premix
Yeah.
milkshakes,
Yeah.
whatever. So He takes that and he mills it with a chipper. No,
Mm-mm.
no, he does it by
No,
axis.
no,
He
Gilberto uses
mills
an
it.
axe.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they use axes to mill this. So, and it's not very fine mill. You can see still some chunks of the sotol at the end when they're done doing this. So in that sense, it will be there. You go.
Okay.
That's the axe. That's the milling, which takes us to the second part of the process, which is fermentation. And they don't use the vessels that you will normally use in the Oaxacan tradition. They have something they call coffins, ataúdes,
Which was
and
in, I just showed that. I should have kept that up. I didn't even think
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
that. I'm
That
sorry.
that's what I jumped so fast to the fermentation part, but I guess you didn't quite get the cue.
I didn't.
Uh, they throw this milled agave into those coffins, and why are they buried, Lou? Why do they put it under earth?
Well, it's not really buried, but it's in the earth, right?
Well,
They've
yeah,
set
it's
these in the earth, with the theory being, right, the temperature changes so much from day to night in Durango. You get these temperature swings of like 40 degrees. It's crazy.
it's crazy.
And that can really mess up a fermentation. So by putting the fermenter into the ground, what you're doing in essence is creating a type of insulation that's going to mitigate some of those crazy swings in temperature.
But you know something that I love about their approach too? I've seen a lot of fermenting, like concrete fermentation tanks in the wine world, and they're
Mhm.
just exposed concrete. They don't put anything, they don't put a layer of anything between that concrete and the
Ah,
fermentation must.
and they're
And I
adding wood here. Yeah.
and I hate that because concrete is very fragile when you put it in contact with all the acids and all the crazy chemicals that are inside of fermentation. So it starts dissolving, not a lot,
Mhm.
but it dissolves. And I'm pretty sure that it informs in some way or the other the must or
I
what
would
it's having contact with. So
I would
these
think
guys are
so.
really smart. They just put a layer of wood like between that concrete and the fermented must. And I really think that they just do that out of flavor. I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
someone once tasted a trace of concrete into their spirit. And they're like, oh, I hate this. We need to find a way to get rid of it.
But another thing that I think is unique about this, and just to catch up Catalina with what we're talking about, right? She's going to be cooking her sotol the same way that Gilberto's cooking his sotol. She's not going to be milling the same way. When she mills, she's using the wood chipper. She's
Yep.
using the machine. Yeah. And then she's going to be fermenting not in these coffins, but in the same kind of wood barrels that we talked about when we were talking about Emmanuel during the first round. Um, but like to me, a big difference here is it goes to what you were suggesting with the difference between Manuel and Sebastian, where the shape of the vessel is so
Um,
fermentation vessel is so different that the fermentation process is so different, right? So you've got a little bit of headspace and a lot of depth when you're talking about those barrel fermenters that somebody like Catalina's using. But when you're talking about these coffins, in terms of ratio, it's significantly more. What do you
exposed
not?
surface.
Yes, thank you. Surface area on top than it is depth. There's just not a lot of depth, and as a result, you can get very, very rapid fermentations in Durango. I've been told, I don't know that I believe it, but I've been told like 12 hours and they're done.
That's so interesting. It's also more insulated. So I'm sure that the temperature that they can achieve, maybe, they try to get advantage of the warmness of the day and they turbocharge their fermentation with that. And maybe at the end of the day, it's done. That makes sense considering how hot Durango was. But
Hmm.
again, like yeah, that's insane. So even and it's amazing because these tiny things that one will think that are not so consequential make a world of difference,
Yep.
and that's marvelous. So distillation, how do they stills look?
Okay, so yeah, so the stills. Remember we were talking about those wood-fired copper pot stills when we were talking about Manuel and Miwatlan. And the stills here are wood fired and they are copper, but it's a different kind of pot. Instead of, when I think of a pot, I think of actually something that's shaped kind of like the bottom of this, right? Um, and instead, what you've got as the base or the pot in Durango is more like this. It's literally it's literally in Michoacan the same copper bowl that they would use to make carnitas, to fry up carnitas in, which is a
Delicious.
completely different shape. Which, I
More
mean,
like this.
yeah, you're the science dude here. Like, I don't know what that does, but I know it does something different. And instead of having a tiny little condenser that's like, a bit bigger than my head, on top, to capture that vapor, instead they've got these giant 4 foot tall, wooden condensers that they
That
capture it in.
they're conically shaped.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy.
then that is connected to a coil. So this is a mix of different distillation traditions, and it's very unclear how did they merge all this together. But in Durango, this is the preferred way, and they are super specific about their flavor. And I love that when we were there were a lot of the government gave them a lot of stainless steel equipment, a lot of stainless steel condensers and pots and whatnot. And there was at least a few producers that we visit where that stainless steel was sitting in the back unused, and we're talking about
Or or
expensive equipment.
or it was holding corn from last season, dried corn.
Yeah, and we're like, well, you have a $2,000 piece of equipment just full with chickens. Why did you do that? And they were like, we didn't like the taste. We hated it. So these people, every decision that is there, it's very specific to match the flavor profile that they're into. Do we know exactly how every piece affects and how do they add up to come to this flavor? Unfortunately, we haven't had that grant, but it
You keep
does.
talking about $500,000 grants. At
Yeah.
some point you're going to actually have to submit for one of those.
Uh,
So,
yes.
oh, and Catalina, just to be clear, Catalina is using the same type of still that Sebastian used, where it's going to be a stainless steel bottom and then a clay condenser on the top, and it's wood fired.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chan chan.
I think we move on to the next round, Chava.
Well, yes. On
See you
aged.
all in the next video.
Pew pew.